I never expected the moment that changed everything to start with a sock. Just a stupid, mismatched sock lying halfway under the couch. But that's how life works, doesn't it? One second you're folding laundry with your best friend and roommate, and the next, you're rethinking everything you thought you knew about him, and about yourself. We'd been living together for a year and a half. Comfortable, easy, like second skin, and maybe that was the problem. I got so used to hiding in that comfort. I never realized how much I'd started to crave more. I'm Alex, 24, graphic designer, introverted but sarcastic, obsessed with vintage cameras and coffee brewed, way too strong. And then there's him, Jake, tall, broad-shouldered, all charm and casual masculinity. He played varsity baseball in college, still lifts at sunrise like it's a religion, and somehow always smells like cedar and sun-dried cotton. He's straight at least. He is. I think we met in sophomore year, both shoved into a shared dorm room thanks to a last-minute housing reshuffle. I expected the worst. What I got was someone who offered me the better bed without hesitation, memorized my coffee order by the second week, and sang along to Stevie Wonder while brushing his teeth. He is the kind of person who sees people, really sees them, and I think that's what ruined me. We moved into this apartment last summer, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, cluttered kitchen, and a tiny balcony with 2 lawn chairs and a cactus named Otis. It's not glamorous, but it's ours. On paper, nothing has changed, but everything feels like it's about to, because tomorrow we leave for a weekend trip, just the 2 of us. His idea, Jake's older brother, is getting married out in the mountains, an outdoor cabin-style venue. Scenic hikes, lakeside bonfires, the works. Jake asked me to come with him months ago, mostly because he didn't want to face the ex-girlfriend, who'd be there alone. I said yes, mostly because I'm weak and couldn't resist 3 days with him and no walls between us. I'm folding clothes on the edge of the bed when he walks in. Towels slung around his neck, damp curls flattened against his forehead. His shirt clings to him in places I try not to stare at. "You done packing?" he asks, tossing his duffel onto the floor with a loud thump. "Almost you're bringing actual shoes this time, or just those torn-up sneakers you love." He grins. "Those sneakers are legendary. Don't hate." His voice is always warm, casual, like a hand resting on your shoulder without asking. I find myself smiling too easily when he talks. I hate that I do that. As I reach for another shirt, I spot the sock red and gray half hidden under the couch. I bend to grab it just as he drops down beside me, and our shoulders brush. It's nothing, it's everything. He doesn't move right away, and I wonder if he felt it too. Probably not. "So," he says slowly, leaning back on his hands, "you think I'm gonna survive this wedding without throwing a drink at Emily?" "Unlikely. But if you do, I'll buy you ice cream." He grins again, wide and easy, and nudges my knee with his. "Deal." There's a long pause. Not awkward, more like suspended. His eyes land on my open suitcase, then flick back to me. "Thanks for coming. By the way, I know it's weird, but I didn't want to go without you." My breath catches. I pretend it doesn't. "Yay," I say, looking down at my hands. "You and me against the world, remember?" He laughs. "Always." And just like that, the moment's over. But something in me knows. This trip isn't going to be like all the others. Something's shifting, and whether it's in him or in me, I'm about to find out. The first time Jake and I met, he balanced 2 cafeteria trays in one hand and offered me a fist bump with the other because apparently a handshake was too formal for sharing mystery meat. I was an awkward sophomore fresh from a gap year, spent photographing abandoned train stations. He was a transfer student who still tied his sneakers with double knots like a kid on field day. That contrast should have made us clash. Instead, it blended like black coffee and too much caramel. Wrong on paper, yet perfect on the tongue. We bonded over late-night Mario Kart battles in the dorm lounge. Him shouting at the screen, me quietly, plotting banana peel revenge. He'd laugh whenever I muttered pathetic after spinning out, swearing I sounded like some cartoon villain. By mid-semester, our ritual was set win or lose. We split a sleeve of vending machine Oreos, and argued over whose major was harder. He said design was just coloring for adults. I countered that athlete-approved kinesiology sounded like PE with Latin. That playful antagonism followed us into apartment life. Our fridge became a bulletin board of doodled threats. Touch my cold brew and suffer. A. Hide my protein. Powder and perish. J. We never actually hid anything. The notes were enough. But beneath the jokes was an unspoken promise. I see you, I respect your quirks, and I'm here. The wedding road trip feels like an anniversary tour of all those tiny bonds. 4 hours into the drive, Jake flicks on cruise control and angles. I grin my way. Remember senior year when you tried to teach me Photoshop and I turned your face into a pineapple? I snort. Tried. You replaced my nose with a kiwi slice. That's not editing. That's digital vandalism. He drums the steering wheel. You kept the file. Evidence for future blackmail. His easy laugh fills the car, warm as sunlight. Through the windshield, I catch myself staring only a beat too long at the cut of his jaw when he tilts his head back. I look away first, heart thudding. We stop at a gas station diner halfway to the mountains. It's all buzzing fluorescents and cracked vinyl booths. Jake orders pancakes the size of hubcaps and pretends not to notice me stealing one. When syrup drips down my wrist, he wipes it off with a napkin before I can react, an instinctive, soft gesture that tightens something in my chest. Outside, the temperature dips. Pine-scented air replaces exhaust fumes. Jake slings an arm over my shoulders to steer me toward the car. Purely casual. My pulse misreads it anyway. I focus on the rhythm of our steps, his stride slightly longer, mine quickening to match, and wonder if he feels the electricity humming between us or if it's all in my head. An hour later, the small complication strikes. We arrive at the lakeside lodge where all the guests are booked, only to learn the venue's tech crew accidentally double-scheduled rooms. Translation: instead of 2 twin beds in our cabin, there's 1 king. The receptionist offers a patch-up rollaway cot, but Jake waves it off. No worries, he says, glancing at me for confirmation. I shrugged, pretending unfazed, though my stomach somersaults. Sharing a room is normal. Sharing a bed is uncharted territory. Inside the cabin, he whistles appreciatively at the rustic decor: antler lamp, plaid blankets, stone fireplace. Place looks like a woodsy postcard, he says, dropping his duffel near the foot of the bed. Hope you're not a blanket hog. I raise an eyebrow. Bold of you to assume you'll get any blanket at all. He grins, that frustratingly perfect grin, and tosses me a folded quilt. Truce. Equal blanket possession, or I file a roommate dispute. We unpack in comfortable silence, broken by occasional commentary. His about the miniature shampoo bottles. Why are they always oatmeal and sage? Nobody wants herbed cereal on their head. Mine about the landscape prints on the wall. But each time we pass in the small space, our shoulders brush. Each time he reaches for something beside me, his knuckles graze my sleeve. By the third incidental touch, I'm overly attuned to the scent of his cologne mixing with cedar-paneled air. Evening settles. Guests gather at the main lodge for a pre-wedding barbecue on the deck. String lights glowing overhead. Jake and I lean against the railing, paper plates balanced on the wooden rail while lake water ripples below. His ex-Emily in pastel chiffon flits past with polite small talk. Jake stiffens slightly. I nudge his elbow in silent solidarity. He relaxes, gratitude flickering in his eyes. Later, music drifts from outdoor speakers, souled tunes, Jake's dad loves. Without thinking, Jake hums along. I laugh because that habit is so him, singing from the diaphragm, oblivious to how off-key he is. He hears my laugh, raises playful brows, and belts the chorus louder. I pretend to cover my ears. He clutches imaginary pearls, our unspoken choreography. When the last lanterns are extinguished, we walk the short trail back to our cabin. Gravel crunches underfoot. A slice of moon hangs above the dark water, quiet, expectant. At the door, Jake pauses, key halfway to the lock. Hey, thanks, he says softly. For what? Letting you mutilate my eardrums. He huffs a laugh. For today. For coming. For being you. The porch light casts a faint halo around him. I open my mouth wanting to say something bigger than you're welcome and fail. The moment stretches like taffy. His eyes search mine, then he looks away first, fiddling with the key until the door clicks open. Inside, we change in practiced routine, backs turned, unspoken courtesy. Yet when we both reach to plug our phones into the same outlet, our fingers tangle for a heartbeat. We don't move. I feel the warmth of his skin. He whispers, sorry, but doesn't withdraw immediately. Something flickers behind his eyes, curiosity, fear. I can't decipher it fast enough before the moment dissolves. He clears his throat, digs a spare charger from his bag, and we settle on opposite edges of the bed. Lamp off, we lie in darkness, lit only by moonlight through sheer curtains. I face the window. I hear him shift, exhale, settle. Our breathing sinks slow, shallow, treacherously aware. Minutes or hours pass before his voice breaks the hush, low and hesitant. You awake? Yeah, he's quiet. Then, glad you're here, man. It's such a simple statement, heavy as granite. I swallow. Me too. His hand drifts across the sheets, stopping inches from mine. I could close the gap, pretended. Accident. Quick spark. I don't. Instead, I memorize the shape of silence between our hands and wonder how long it will last. I fall asleep counting heartbeats, his and mine pulsing in the same fragile space. The morning after our near-silent moonlit sleep, Jake suggested a short hike before the rehearsal brunch to shake off nerves, he said, but I suspected he just needed air away from family politics. I agreed, half because I wanted to photograph the Alpine Lake at sunrise, half because any excuse to walk beside him felt like a gift I shouldn't examine too closely. We left the lodge trailhead with 2 granola bars, my battered film camera, and 1 shared canteen. The path was well marked at first towering spruces, carpets of bronze pine needles, the lake flashing silver through branches. Jake kept pace behind me, occasionally reaching past to steady a hanging limb so it wouldn't whip my face. Each time his palm hovered above my shoulder, I felt heat there long after it moved away. An hour in, we reached a split in the trail. The left fork, freshly roped off, bore a maintenance footbridge closed sign. Jake consulted the map on his phone, eyebrows pinched. The right loop's longer, he frowned, but we've got time. I should have insisted on turning back, but he flashed that lopsided grin. Adventure, it seemed to say, is part of the point. So we continued, sun climbing, birds starting their casual gossip overhead. The longer loop was also less. Roots snarled across the dirt, and occasional scree slides forced single-file walking. Jake offered to lead, but I waved him forward only when the path narrowed so tightly my backpack scraped bark. The scent of crushed juniper followed his steps. I breathed it like something illicit. By late morning the lake appeared again below, closer than it should have been. The loop, it turned out, curved back toward shore along a rocky ledge, then dropped steeply to a small boat shed used by venue staff. Shortcut, Jake declared, triumphant. We picked our way down. Halfway to the shed, his heel caught a mosslick root. He cursed softly and lurched, windmilling. I grabbed his arm. Momentum dragged us both sideways. We landed in a low tuft of brush. No harm but ego until he tried to stand. Ankle, he hissed, teeth bared. He rotated it once and winced. Great. We limped the last 50 yards together, my shoulder under his footfalls, sinking out of necessity. The more of a maintenance cabin was unlocked. Inside, 2 overturned canoes, shelves of life vests, a bench, and mercifully, a wool blanket folded at the far end. No staff, no cell service. The lodge sat on the opposite shore, shining like a postcard across the wide water. Jake eased onto the bench, hands braced on either side, jaw clenched as he probed the swelling above his shoe. I knelt, lacing fingers nervously. Remove or keep it on. Off, he grunted. Loosen it before it balloons. I untied his sneaker, gingerly slid it free. My thumbs skated over warm skin and sparse dark hair. He sucked in a breath, or something else. I couldn't tell. Determined to look busy, I pulled the blanket down and tore a life vest strap free for compression. All the while my brain screamed, "You're holding his foot like some rom-com trope." When I wrapped the improvised bandage around his ankle, his calf flexed against my wrist. We were close to close faces level, breaths mingling. He smelled of pine sweat and the cedar soap he always steals from my bathroom shelf. For a wild second I imagined leaning forward, pressing lips to that faint pulse beneath his ear. Instead, I cleared my throat. "We need to keep weight off it," I said. "Roger that," he murmured, eyes locked on mine. Gratitude shimmered there, and something softer, unguarded. He blinked first, glancing at the lake. "Signal's dead. Guess we wait." I sank beside him on the bench. The shed was barely wider than the canoe racks. Our knees touched. Silence thick and not awkward, but charged, like static before a spark. Jake rolled the canteen between his palms and finally spoke. "Remember sophomore year when you dragged me to the art building at 2 a.m. so you could photograph neon exit signs?" I huffed a laugh. "You fell asleep on the floor." He nudged my thigh with his. "You covered me with your hoodie. Thought I didn't notice." My cheeks warmed. "You snored," I teased. "Lies," he whispered, smiling. The gentle ribbing eased us, but every shared memory felt newly electric, lit from beneath by meaning I hadn't dared assign before. Time passed. The sun shifted, sending angled beams through the slatted walls, dust motes swirling. A breeze off the water crept in, cool enough to raise goosebumps. Without thinking, Jake unfurled the wool blanket and draped it over both our shoulders, edges pooling across our laps. His arms settled along the backrest, hand brushing my far shoulder. I froze. My pulse leapt to the hollow of my throat. The blanket smelled faintly of wood smoke, or maybe that was him. He leaned a fraction closer, perhaps for warmth, perhaps unconsciously our hips aligned, feet gathered where fabric could not disguise shape. I stared at his profile, straight nose, eyelashes dark against sunlit skin. He turned and found me looking. He didn't pull away. Instead, he tilted his head, studying me like one of my own portraits. "You're quiet," he said, voice low. "I'm thinking about dangerous territory." I searched for an exit in the ribbed aluminium ceiling and found none. How this moment feels weirdly familiar. Like we've been circling it for a while. The words surprised us both. His nostrils flared. Fingers drummed once on my shoulder. Before stilling. "Yeah," he said softly. "It kinda does." Unsure what to do with the tremor inside me, I shifted, intending to stand. But his hand closed on my forearm light, instinctive, yet firm enough that I stopped. "Ankle reminder," he said, smile crooked, but he didn't release me right away. 1,000 unsaid sentences crowded my skull. "I could be happy with you. You make me brave." Instead, I forced a joke. "You're lucky I minored in wilderness first aid. Did you know? But I watched a tutorial once." He laughed, head falling back, and because I couldn't help it, I reached to steady him, palm on the slope of his shoulder. The muscle under flannel twitched, not from pain. His laughter faded, our faces lingered inches apart, breaths interlaced. I wondered if he could feel the hammering in my chest. "Alex," he began, then stopped, swallowing. His tongue darted to his lower lip, nervous tell, yet he ran a thumb slowly along the inside of my wrist where he still held me. The touch was featherlight, intimate in a way words can't mimic. "Sometimes," he said, eyes flicking to our joined hands, "I think I label things wrong. Call them one thing because it's easier." My throat went dry. "What kind of things?" "Friendship, fear," he exhaled through his nose. "Legendary sneakers." I barked a startled laugh. He grinned, relieved, but the admission hovered. Between us and finished, potent. Before either of us could add more, an engine sputtered outside. A small outboard skiff nosed toward the dock, venue staffer in a bright vest waving. Jake and I jolted apart as if caught stealing cookies. The rescuer shouted an apology about the route detour and killed the motor. I hurried out to flag him while Jake hobbled behind with the blanket draped like a cape. The staffer's radio crackled. Apparently, the lodge had realized we'd missed brunch and sent a search boat. As Jake stepped gingerly aboard, he shot me a sidelong glance, half gratitude, half question suspended. I answered with a small smile that said later, because there had to be a later now. The promise of it pulsed in the air between us, strong as the lake's reflected sun. As the boat cut a wake toward shore, Jake's knee brushed mine, and this time neither of us moved away. By the time the staff boat nudged the lodge dock, the rehearsal brunch was long over. The sun hung lower, tinting the lake bronze, and the air had shifted from crisp to downright chilly. Jake leaned on me as we limped up the path. Every other step, a stifled grunt. The wedding coordinator spotted us and ushered Jake to a makeshift clinic room, the venue kept for altitude headaches and scraped knees. Inside, a volunteer EMT, silver-haired, patient probed his ankle and declared it a mild sprain. "Off it tonight," she said, taping it snug. "Elevate, ice, no dancing, Tomar." She stopped mid-sentence, recognizing the doomed look in Jake's eyes. "Fine, minimal dancing, but only if your friend here supervises." She winked at me. We thanked her and hobbled back to the cabin. Dusk crept through the trees like violet smoke. Jake's arm slung across my shoulders again, heavier now. Weight, part trust. My heart tried to climb its own ribs. Inside, he collapsed onto the bed with a sigh that sounded half amusement, half pain. I kicked off my shoes, filled a plastic bag with ice from the hallway freezer, and pressed it to his ankle. He hissed through clenched teeth but didn't flinch. "Hero," he muttered. "Pay me in Oreos." He smirked, eyes soft. "I owe you." A factory silence gathered while the ice crackled, melting in its bag. Outside, distant laughter from rehearsal dinner guests drifted across the lake. Inside, only the tick of an antique wall clock and 2 sets of uneven breathing. Jake broke. "First, you're okay. You've been quiet since the shed." "I'm always quiet," I deflected, straightening the blanket around his waist so I didn't have to meet his gaze. "Not like today." His hand dropped over mine, stopping the nervous fussing. "Talk to me." Heat shot up my arm. I should have pulled away habitual caution, but my fingers stayed under his. "I just worried about your ankle." Only a half lie. He studied me. Candlelight from the bedside sconce carved shadows along his jaw, making him look both older and infinitely vulnerable. "It's not my ankle that's on your mind." I inhaled, felt the ridge of air skate along my throat. "Jake." He squeezed my hand once, firm grounding. "That thing I started to say, Before the boat came, I remember. He licked his lips, gaze flicking between my eyes, as if searching for permission. I've been labeling things wrong, I meant it. My pulse galloped. Which things? I asked, though I knew he exhaled. Us. The word hung, stark, brave. This isn't just friendship anymore, is it? My breath left me in a shaky laugh. If you have to ask, you haven't noticed the way I look at you, he swallowed. His thumb brushed the inside of my wrist, one slow stroke that felt like a match dragged across skin. I have noticed, he whispered, more than I wanted to admit. The room tilted. The distance between us, once safe, now burned. I met his eyes. Why admit it now? Because today scared me. His voice cracked. When I slipped, 1,000 stupid cliches hit me at once. How fast things change, how fragile. And the only thought louder than the pain was, don't let him go. My throat ached. I shifted so I was sitting cross-legged beside him, our knees touching. You're straight. The word sounded naive even to me, but it needed saying. He smiled sadly. I've spent years wearing that label like a favorite jacket, never questioning if it still fit. But then you moved in with your Polaroids and your terrible 6 a.m. espresso grinding, and the seams started to split. Emotion, weld relief, fear, all tangled. I thought it was just me, I whispered. It's not just you. His hand slid to my cheek, tentative, almost trembling. The calluses from batting practice rasped my skin, real and surreal all at once. I don't know what this makes me, but I know what I feel when I'm with you. I closed my eyes against a hot sting. Say it, I breathed, selfish for truth. He did, voice low, raw. I love you, Alex. The words detonated in my chest, shaking loose months, years of locked-away longing. When I opened my eyes, his were shining, equal parts terror and wonder. I love you too, I said, and the truth tasted like the first clear breath after surfacing. A tiny exhale left him, as though he'd been submerged too. Then hesitation. But I'm scared, he admitted, of ruining what we have, of people's questions, of my own. I curled my fingers around his. Me too, terrified, actually. I laughed softly. But the alternative is living half alive, he nodded, eyes never leaving mine. Time slowed until I could count the flecks of hazel in his irises. He leaned in inches, paused, giving me veto power. I bridged the remaining gap, pressing my forehead to his. The contact sent a shiver down my spine, gentle as snowfall yet monumental. I breathed him in cedar soap, campfire wool, a note of nervous adrenaline. If we do this, I murmured, we do it together. No hiding. No hiding, he echoed, voice thick. His thumb traced my cheekbone to my jaw, featherlight. Yes, I said, and our lips met. It wasn't cinematic fireworks. It was a tremor, cautious and searching. His mouth was warm, the kiss slow, more exhale than action, yet it rewired every nerve. My hand slipped behind his neck, fingertips brushing the hairline. He sighed a soft, helpless sound and angled closer, ice bag forgotten, blanket sliding. When we parted, forehead still touching, I realized tears blurred my vision. He wiped one with the pad of his thumb. Happy, he whispered. I corrected, then smiled, and happy. He chuckled, a shaky sound. Still friends. Best friends, I promised. Plus a few upgrades. He laughed outright, shoulders easing, then his face sobered. Tomorrow's wedding, dinner, family, ex-girlfriend, 1,000 questions. Can we take this slower in public? I nodded. Private doesn't mean secret. We'll set our own pace. Relief flashed in his eyes. He squeezed my hand. Thank you. A knock rattled the cabin door, his sister, checking on his ankle. We scrambled instinctively, me snatching the ice bag, him tugging the blanket higher. The door cracked open. She poked her head in, face blooming with guilt at interrupting. Just making sure you're alive, she said. Alive and whining, Jake assured her, grin perfectly casual. Thanks, sis. When she disappeared, we exhaled twin sighs. That was close, he said. I tilted my head. We'll get better at this. His expression warmed, future tense hope bright on his face. Yeah, he said quietly. We will. He scooted back against the headboard, patting the space beside him. I climbed up and settled, careful of his ankle. The lamp glow rested on our tangled hands atop the blanket. Outside, crickets started their night symphony. We talked in murmurs about everything and nothing, how his brother's vows would make us cry, how the ankle would survive exactly one slow dance, how the grocery budget would double if we kept stress-eating Oreos. Each laugh felt lighter, freer, woven with the thrill of new possibility. At some point he drifted drowsy, head dropping to my shoulder. I kissed his hair, heart full to brimming. The old fear hadn't vanished, but it had found company and courage. and the two balanced each other like oars guiding a canoe across dark water. As his breathing deepened, I stared at the ceilings. Wood beams, tracing future scenes in my mind. Coffee spoons clinking in our kitchen. Whispered arguments over closet space. Holiday flights where we accidentally book one hotel bed on purpose. For the first time, the images felt attainable. Fantasy, but a roadmap. Tomorrow would bring questions. Ankle pain, maybe awkward sidelong glances from relatives. But tonight, the world had shrunk to a cabin, a blanket, and the soft weight of the man I loved leaning trustingly against me. I let my eyes close, matching my breaths to his, and knew that whatever labels waited outside these walls, inside them a new name had already taken root us. I woke to sunlight spilling through the curtains and the unfamiliar weight of Jake's arm snug around my waist. For one disorienting second I thought I'd dreamed everything: the shed, the kiss, the whispered I love yous, but then his breath stirred the back of my neck and reality snapped into glorious focus. Morning, he rasped, voice thick with sleep. I rolled carefully so we were face to face on the pillow. How's the ankle? Still attached, he said, then grinned. And currently wrapped around my favorite guy, so no complaints. My cheeks heated. I nudged his shoulder. Cheesy, designer-approved cheddar, he countered, planting a quick kiss on my forehead before easing onto his back. He winced as the sprain reminded us it existed. I swung my legs off the bed. Stay, I'll grab ice and coffee. He caught my wrist. Make it that sludge you call espresso. Extra love, no sugar. Love is the sugar, I said, rolling my eyes yet. The words tasted new and exhilarating. Coffee and quiet plans. 10 minutes later, I balanced 2 steaming mugs, a fresh ice bag, and every Oreo I could scavenge from our snack stash. Jake propped himself against the headboard, blanket pulled at his waist. I set the ice on his ankle, then crawled beside him, knees bumping gently. He accepted the mug, blowing across the surface. So, he said, gaze fixed on the swirling steam. We're really doing this. I sipped, letting the caffeine steady my racing pulse. Feels a lot like breathing, honestly, he hummed. Same, then softer. What happens after the wedding? After we go back to real life? We schedule a roommate summit, I said, feigning bureaucracy. Agenda, grocery division, chore chart modification, and whether public displays of affection are allowed during dish duty. He chuckled, shoulders relaxing. I vote yes, but only if you actually rinse before loading the dishwasher. Barbarian, I teased, hip-checking him. He retaliated by tapping my knee with an Oreo. The playful exchange felt like the old us, just upgraded private jokes, spiced with shy glances that lingered. When the laughter ebbed, seriousness slipped back in. I set my mug on the nightstand. Jokes aside, we'll navigate it one conversation at a time. We tell who we want, when we want. There's no deadline on labels. He exhaled slowly. I'll have to talk to my parents eventually. They're traditional. I reached for his hand, threading our fingers. We'll do it together even if it's awkward or scary. You're not facing anything alone. His grip tightened, gratitude flickering in hazel eyes. Okay, he said. Together, suiting up and slow dances late morning brought groomsmen chaos. Jake's brother's friends hammered on our door, needing help with cufflinks and tie knots. We'd agreed to keep things low-key, so we played our normal roles, me the calm problem solver, Jake the charismatic mediator, yet small tales betrayed us. The way his hand hovered at my lower back when the hallway crowded, or how my eyes trailed him across the room as if on an invisible string. If anyone noticed, they chalked it up to close friendship. For now, that was enough. After the ceremony, fairy lights twinkled over the lakeside dance floor. Jake skipped the bouquet of rowdier dancers, but when a slow Motown classic drifted from the speakers, he crooked a finger at me. Doctor's orders. Minimal dancing, he reminded. And you're the doctor. Fine. I sighed theatrically. One gentle spin. I wrapped his arms loosely around my shoulders to spare the ankle. My hands settled at his waist. We swayed more than danced, water lapping nearby, lanterns swaying overhead. Our cheeks brushed. I felt him smile. Do you feel lighter? He asked, like I dropped a backpack I didn't realize I was carrying. Me too, he whispered, and pressed a kiss just below my ear, quick hidden from view. Electricity shot through me. I squeezed his waist in reply. Across the floor, Emily caught my eye. She flicked a glance at Jake's arms around me, raised a knowing eyebrow, then offered a tiny thumbs up before turning away. Relief and nerves tangled together, but mostly I felt seen. Bench in the pines later. We escaped to a wooden bench under towering pines. The din of music thinned to a pleasant hum. Jake exhaled, tipping his head to the stars. So many people, so many questions, none of which we have to answer tonight, I said, tracing idle circles on his forearm. Right now, it's just you and me. He looked at my hand, then at my face. You sure you're ready for my messy learning curve, as long as it keeps leading here? I leaned to kiss him, still tentative, still new, but less terrified. His hand cupped my jaw, thumb brushing my cheek as though confirming my existence. When we parted, he rested his forehead to mine. Next month my company's retreat is at a beach condo. +1 invited, come only if they upgrade the coffee, I'll smuggle your beans. His grin widened. Deal. Deal. We sat in comfortable silence, savoring wind-rustled needles and the distant clink of champagne glasses. At some point he threaded our pinkies together, almost childish, entirely perfect. Future hurdles loomed, introductions, explanations, definitions, but they felt tackleable like rocky trails. We'd already proved we could navigate side by side. Jake glanced at his taped ankle. Think this will survive the after-party? Depends. How committed you are to the Macarena, he groaned. For you, maybe. Then I'll save you by claiming that doctor said no swivel hips. He laughed so hard he winced. I rested a palm on his knee. The intimacy was effortless now, like adjusting an image's contrast until everything sharpens. Promise. In the dark the reception wound down. We made our slow way back to the cabin beneath a quilt of stars. At the door, Jake stopped, pulling me gently by our joined hands. One thing before sleep, he murmured. Promise we'll make space real, intentional space to figure this out. Not just in stolen moments. I squeezed his fingers. I promise. Weekly state meetings, color-coded and caffeinated. He smiled, then surprised, me pressing my palm to his heart. The steady thump beneath my touch answered questions words couldn't. I mirrored the gesture, guiding his hand to my chest. We're synced, he whispered. Good night, Jake. Good night. Boyfriend. He tried the word like a new flavor. Warmth flooded me. Yeah, I breathed. Boyfriend. He kissed me soft, lingering in the world narrowed to that single point of contact. A compass needle finally finding north. When we parted, I tasted tomorrow on my tongue and knew that whatever storms minus the literal rain the future brewed, we'd stand under the same umbrella. Hand in hand, we crossed the threshold, closing the door on the past and opening it together into whatever waited next. The morning after the wedding, the lake lay glass still, mirroring pine tips and a sky as cloudless as my mood. We checked out late, Jake hobbling with practiced patience, me shouldering both duffels. As we eased into his car, he balanced the taped ankle on the dashboard and grinned. Home, co-pilot. Home, I confirmed, turning the key. The drive felt different this time. Not quieter, our playlist shuffled the same road trip, songs but fuller. Every chorus we sang off-key held a private undertone. Every glance at each other carried an unspoken "we're really doing this." At a scenic pull-off, Jake asked me to stop. He wanted one last photo. I framed him against the alpine horizon, sun haloing his hair. Then he insisted on a selfie, our heads together, smiles crooked, future wide open behind us. He studied the picture afterward. Print this, he said. Put it on the fridge where the chore chart used to be. Retiring the chart. Promotion, he corrected. From roommates too. He nudged my shoulder. Whatever comes next. Keys on the hook. Evening light dappled the apartment living room when we finally rolled in. Same thrift store couch, same squeaky ceiling fan, but the air felt newly claimed. I lugged bags to our respective rooms, then paused in the hallway. Jake's door was wide open. His suitcase lay half emptied on the floor. I found him in the kitchen, rooting through the junk drawer. Lost something. He straightened, cheeks pink, looking for command hooks. He held up a plastic packet he'd obviously bought long ago and forgotten. I raised an eyebrow. DIY urge. Symbolic DIY. He peeled the backing, stuck a hook under the key rack by the door. That one's for us. Keys side by side. He slid his house key onto the new hook, then took mine from my hand and added it next to his. A small click, and there they hung to dull brass shapes. Edges touching. The simplicity of it hit me harder than the grandest speech. A shared hook, a promise I'd see his key every morning and know mine wasn't alone. I swallowed past a sudden lump. Officially cojones of one hook. High-stakes commitment, he teased, looping arms around my waist. Can't back out, now the adhesive's permanent. Guess you're stuck with me. I leaned into him, forehead against his collarbones. His heart thrummed steady under my ear, a rhythm that already felt like home. Sunday night rituals. Upgraded, we settled into the familiar chaos of unpacking. Laundry piles, souvenir mugs, half-eaten snacks. But the mundane carried new undertones. While sorting socks, Jake paused to steal a kiss. I retaliated by tossing a balled-up pear at him. When he bragged about his folding technique, laughter bounced off the hallway walls, echoing brighter than before. Later, we occupied our usual Sunday night spots, Jake on the couch, nursing his ankle, me on the floor editing photographs. Only now his free hand rested on my shoulder, thumb, tracing idle circles at the nape of my neck. The contact felt so natural, I wondered how we'd ever sat apart. He glanced at my screen. That shot of the lake needs more contrast. Designer knows best. I sniffed. He squeezed my shoulder. Boyfriend privilege means I can critique. I let the word boyfriend float between us, savoring its weight and warmth. In that case, I said, boyfriend should pick tonight's movie. He chose a corny action flick we'd mocked a dozen times. Midway through, he dozed off. I closed my laptop, draped the throw over us, and watched the flicker of explosions light his sleeping face. In the hush, the reality of our journey settled like a quilt, from mismatched dorm beds to this shared couch keys together. Dreams aligned. Quiet promises at midnight. I nudged him awake. He blinked blearily, then smiled when he realized his head was in my lap. Best nap ever, bedtime, superstar. I helped him to his feet. He looped an arm around my shoulders, more for closeness than balance. At his doorway he paused. Stay. The single word held no pressure, just hope. I nodded. We brushed teeth in tandem, knocking elbows, giggling at the foam on our chins. Inside his room, I hesitated by the dresser. He patted the mattress beside him. I crawled in, and we lay facing each other in the muted glow of the bedside lamp. Scared. He whispered, only of alarm clocks. He chuckled, then sobered. Serious version. I inhaled. I'm aware there will be questions, yours, mine, everyone's, but I'm more certain about us than anything I've doubted before. Relief softened his features. Same. He toyed with the bracelet on my wrist, a braided cord he'd given me after his first college home run. Every good thing in my life loops back to you. I traced a fingertip over his taped ankle. Walk at your pace. I'm not rushing, unless there's Oreos on the line, he murmured. Then I sprint. I kissed him, gentle, slow. His hand curved behind my neck, anchoring me in a perfect now. When we parted, he brushed hair from my eyes. Tomorrow morning, coffee. Then, we draft a grocery list. After that, he shrugged. One day at a time. One day together, I corrected. Together, he echoed, sealing the word with another kiss, short but certain. He turned off the lamp. In the dark, our joined hands rested on the space between our hearts. Fingers intertwined like the teeth of new gears, meshing smoothly for the first time, as sleep pulled me under. I thought about the hooks by the door, the selfie printing in my mind, the roadmaps we hadn't drawn yet. The future was vast, winding, occasionally uphill, but I felt the sure tug of his key beside mine, a promise of return and continuation. For the first time in a long time, tomorrow felt less like an unknown and more like an open invitation, one we'd RSVP to together, sunrise by sunrise, step by step, hand in hand.